Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is exactly 8:08 news and views on Salam Media. And of course, we're going to be looking at the big story of the day, and that is the looming strike, which has been called by the EFF, and it's going to be happening on Monday, the 20th of March. There are political parties that are for the strike, and there are those that are against the strike. The DA and Action SA are totally against the strike. They're also talking about possibly taking out an urgent interdict to stop the strike from going ahead. We have online Carl Niehaus, Chairperson of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, and I understand that Carl and his party are all for the strike to go ahead. Carl Niehaus, very good morning to you. Welcome to the program and congratulations on the formation of your party, the new party. Is it a party or a movement?
Well, it's a non-profit organization at this stage, so I would call it an NPO alliance that is working for unity amongst all the progressive forces in South Africa in order to implement a policy of radical economic transformation. And it's, of course, exactly because of us standing for radical economic transformation that we are also fully supporting and participating in this national shutdown on the 20th of March. Our country is being destroyed by neoliberalism, by the failure of Cyril Ramaphosa and his administration. And it is time for the people of South Africa to stand up and save our nation.
I'm going to talk a little more about your NPO a little later on in the show, but for now, let's talk about ARETA. Let's talk about the strike on Monday. We've also heard Julius Malema suggesting, they have said that obviously everybody possibly should be attending. And for people who do not adhere to the strike, there's been veiled threats of perhaps their businesses being looted, etc. How do you respond to something like that? And how do we, as South Africa, move forward, have these strikes or protests, which is our constitutional right to make our voices heard, but at the same time also ensure that the young people don't start destroying infrastructure in the process and don't end up hurting, maiming, or killing innocent people? That is a big problem when we talk about protest action, is it not?
No, it's not really, because we have a constitution that provides us with the rights of protest, the right to have this national shutdown. And I really object to people who immediately try to use propaganda to say that a peaceful national shutdown that has been called, which is legal and constitutional, will turn into violence and attacks on private property. That is not the case. This is propaganda, and it is propaganda in order to try and decampaign the right that we have to express our very legitimate concerns about the direction in which our country is going and to participate in this national shutdown. I listened to some of the leadership of the Democratic Alliance in Cape Town threatening all kinds of things, saying that they will not allow the national shutdown to go ahead. Now, does the DA recognize and realize that such statements are in fact unconstitutional, and they are the ones, when they make such threats, who are in violation of the law?
Okay, so Carl, let's, with due respect, in all honesty, we've had protest action over and over and over again over the past so many years. And 9 out of 10 times when these protest action, takes place, there is very definitely incidences of intimidation, violence, damage to property, etc. Who should be taking the blame for that? The organizers of the protest action, or do you think it is outright criminality, people just trying to create mischief and criminality and cast a bad light on the people who have initially started the protest action and also further their agendas?
Well, let me first of all say that I would dispute a statistic that says 9 out of 10 times there's violence and destruction of property. That is not the case. The instances where they are such, one should condemn it. And we call on all the participants in the national shutdown to abide by the law, to make use of their constitutional right to express their views legitimately and legally. And we also would like to warn anyone who would like to use violence or any such action as an act of provocateurism to put this national shutdown in a bad light, that we will not tolerate it. We are going to express our views. We are going to call for the removal of Cyril Ramaphosa. We should have gone long ago. We call for electricity in this country for all the people, which should be possible. It is a human-made, deliberate situation that we have the kind of load shedding that we have at the moment, and we call for proper service delivery, which this government has failed to do and evidently is incapable of doing so. So the people of this country are being violated. The real violence against the people in this country is being executed by this incompetent administration of Cyril Ramaphosa, and the people standing up, participating in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in a national shutdown is in fact fighting back and protecting themselves against the violence of this incompetent and also heartless administration of Cyril Ramaphosa and the governing party.
Okay, correction regarding the comment I made about 9 out of 10 protests do turn violent. That was my own generalization. I wasn't quoting any political leader or any political party. So that's on me. Okay, so moving on then, Carl.
I think it's not correct.
Okay.
Without attacking you, I think we should just
on
try
point.
to keep balance in these kind of things, you know?
I hear you. Thank you. Let's look at the issue around the DA saying that this shutdown indicates that protesters intend to willfully break the law and don't fear the consequences. He goes on to say that this includes threatening images of an EFF leader from Mpumalanga brandishing an automatic rifle on social media with the following post, and I quote, "By all means necessary or possible, we are ready," unquote. So your response to that then?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying by all means necessary within the law. And that is exactly where this national shutdown stands. This national shutdown is, as I said, a protection of the people, protecting themselves against the violence, the exploitation, the heartlessness, the dismanagement, the destruction of the Cyril Ramaphosa administration. And yes, by all means necessary within the parameters of the law, we will participate, we will call for the removal of Cyril Ramaphosa, we will demand the democratic rights and also the rights that the people have to electricity, to basic amenities, to running water, and all the facilities that are currently being denied because of a lack of service delivery.
I'm going to quote the DA yet again. Let me just get back to that previous question of mine regarding the EF leader from
the DA. Well, I would prefer to talk about what we stand for rather than the reactionary comments by the Democratic Alliance. But anyhow,
and I particularly want to put that question to you because I'd like to hear your response to that. But just coming back to that the EFF leader from Mpumalanga brandishing an automatic rifle. Do you not think that that is suggestive of young people using any means possible to go ahead with the strike? Do you not think that that is perhaps suggestive of even possible violence going ahead? That worries me. How do you see that picture?
Well, I don't see this national shutdown to be with the intention to stoke on violence. As I've said to you, my understanding of the national shutdown, and I prefer to refer to the statements made by those who have called the national shutdown in the first place, which is the EFF, and specifically the leader of the EFF, Comrade Julius Malema, and then add to that all of the other parties that participate in the national shutdown, which includes also ARETA, that we stand for peaceful but insistent protest, that Ramaphosa must go, that electricity must return to the people, that basic services have to be secured, and that this is only possible with the removal of the current administration. That is our constitutional right, and I'm not going to be bracketed and packaged by an image of someone brandishing an automatic assault rifle. That is not what we stand for. That is an abuse of an image for propaganda purposes in order to try and misguide the population of our country about the full and true intentions of this national shutdown.
Okay, let's look at the national shutdown on the 20th. It's a day, an entire day of bringing the entire country to a shutdown, so to speak. Number one, and I know that it's going to cost the country billions of rands in in lost earnings, so to speak. But will we achieve? Do you think that what the EFF and ARETA and other people who have similar views regarding the current state of South Africa, that Cyril Ramaphosa is not delivering, that we are being crippled due to the rolling blackouts, that all of the issues that you have outlined now, all of the frustrations of the people of South Africa, just the hardship that we are undergoing, do you believe that this one day of a national shutdown is going to achieve what it is set out to achieve? Do you think Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC is going to hear you? Are they going to take note of the day in question? What are you hoping the outcome is going to look like and be like?
Let me start with your comment about the fact that the national shutdown will cost the country money. What we need to take into consideration is the billions of rands that the misadministration of the Ramaphosa administration, the cost also of all the blackouts that we are faced with, the electricity disaster that has been created by the Ramaphosa administration is costing the country. That is many times over, far more than what the cost may be of this national shutdown. The national shutdown is an urgent emergency action by the people of South Africa calling for an end to the destruction of our economy, an end to the electricity crisis and all the blackouts that we are being faced with, an end to the abuse of lack of basic services to our people. It is a necessary action. It is not a question whether Cyril Ramaphosa and his administration will want to take notice of the national shutdown. They will be forced to take notice of the national shutdown because of the size, because of the magnitude of the shutdown, and because of the urgency of the messages that we are conveying through the shutdown, that there must be an end to the destruction of our South African economy. I do not know if the national shutdown will only be one day. It is certainly dated for the 20th, but obviously the participants in the national shutdown will decide what they want to do, whether they want to continue with protesting. And from the side of ARETA, we will most certainly urge all South Africans to participate in the national shutdown and not simply think of this action as a one-day action, but as continuing rolling mass action until we get rid of the Cyril Ramaphosa administration. Our country is being destroyed. And the only way in which we're going to be able to save our country is to make sure that we send this government back in.
Okay, Carl, my final question. You know, the things you have outlined regarding rolling blackouts, poverty, we know that that has equated into unemployment, poverty, etc., and things need to change, and they do need to change, sooner rather than later. You've also touched on the large scale corruption in government, right from the top going all the way down. You've also indicated that this has cost the country more than perhaps a one-day shutdown, and there is a possibility that the shutdown may carry on for a couple of days. What is the expectation then from ARETA, from EFF and other like-minded people? What is the expectation at the end of the one-day shutdown or one-week shutdown? We don't know how it's going to pan out. What will it take for EFF, ARETA, and other like-minded people to say, okay, we have now reached consensus. We can now move forward, or we can now call off the protest. We are in a position of bargaining, or we are in a position of power, or we are in a position to take control of Eskom and start making electricity available to the masses and start creating employment, etc., etc., etc. Where and how do we get to that point? Because one day, I don't believe, as you've rightly said, will necessarily give us the outcome that we're hoping to achieve.
That's true, but the one day plus whatever may follow beyond that one day is delivering an unequivocal and strong message that Cyril Ramaphosa and his full administration has to go. And your question about what our position is from the perspective of ARETA, it is very simple. We will not stop mobilizing and protesting until Cyril Ramaphosa and his administration is out of power, and until we can have a democratic government and a government representative of the will of the people working for the implementation of radical economic transformation, which must include a restructuring of our state-owned enterprises for control of the state over those enterprises, no further privatization, full control and a stop to any attempt to privatize Eskom, full control over the electricity supply and making use of coal as the basic foundation for secure electricity supply in South Africa, the return of the land of to the people, which must mean expropriation of land without compensation, the nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank, and making sure that there are on all levels of government a commitment of service delivery to our people in order to address the urgent needs for basic amenities, for water, for electricity, for a decent life, as is promised in our national constitution. So whether it's one day, whether it's a week, whether it takes us a year, from the perspective of ARETA, and I believe many other participants in this upcoming national shutdown, we will not stop until we see an end to this Cyril Ramaphosa administration. There is no two ways about it. We will continue until that is achieved.
Carl, my few final questions before we wrap up. I could sit here talking to you all day long. Let's look at this one-day shutdown. Let's look at the call for Cyril Ramaphosa and his cronies to step down. This is not going to be an overnight achievement. It's going to take time. Do you honestly believe that Cyril Ramaphosa will heed the call of ARETA and EFF and step down? Or are the ANC fully behind him? We do know that there are deep divisions within the ANC, but the people that are rooting for him and still go ahead because they're now preparing for the 2024 elections. And what are their chances in the upcoming elections? And added to that, and I'm throwing a whole host of questions to you in one go, added to that, is ARETA going to enter into coalitions come the elections just to have a stronger voice and to perhaps get the ANC out of power?
We are not asking Cyril Ramaphosa with a beautiful invitation card to leave government. We are demanding that he leaves. And we will pile up the pressure until he leaves. It is as simple but as straightforward as that. ARETA is on record as having said that we will work together with all progressive forces in South Africa, all progressive political parties of the left, civil society organizations throughout the country, from religious organizations to all community organizations, to form a broad alliance on the basis of a minimum program of action. And we've provided our own proposal for that minimum program of action in a 10-point plan, which we believe that we can form an alliance which eventually can take control of government and be a democratic alliance which brings an end to this undermining exploitation of an abusive government which calls itself and claims to be still riding on the back of an organization and liberation movement called the African National Congress, while they have actually destroyed the ANC and now abuse and use the name and the colors of the ANC as a Trojan horse for their new liberal economic policy programs, which they are doing in the service of white monopoly capitalism and of Western imperialism. So the simple answer is ARETA will work together with all progressive forces to bring an end to this new liberal administration which is destroying our country. And we will definitely work towards that aim, whether it is to happen now during the national shutdown, whether it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks or months, or during the upcoming 2024 elections. Those are all options. But the aim is one, and that is this administration must go, and a progressive administration working for the implementation of a radical economic transformation has to be put in place in this country. That is the only salvation that the people of South Africa can hope for, and therefore we call on all South Africans to support that aim, and as part of that process of supporting that aim, also to fully support the national shutdown on the 20th of March, which is coming Monday.
Okay, let me end off by reading out a message from Famanda CBC. He says, Comrade Pamgazita, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you very much for outlining the position of ARETA in regard to the national shutdown. That is from Famanda CBC. And someone else is asking the question. Action SS Mashaba says that EFF planning anarchy, lawlessness with this national shutdown. Would you agree with that or not?
Not at all. the anarchy and the lawlessness that we have under the current administration, the blackouts, the full-out looting that has been going on during the COVID-19 period, the looting that we are now going to see again under this so-called state of disaster, the manner in which the administration is going to engage in the procurement of electricity and everything around it indicates to us that this is the real anarchy. This is the real looting. These are the real thieves. These thieves try to present themselves as angels, but in fact, they are angels with horns, and under the propaganda that is presented about them, they are truly the devil.
Carl, very definitely my final question, a very short one. Do you believe if Cyril Ramaphosa steps down, that and ARETA, EFF, and the smaller parties create coalitions, that Eskom can be turned around in a short space of time, that the corruption, the looting, the tenderpreneurship, and all of that will stop, and the country will be led in a way that benefits the people of the country?
Absolutely. We can get rid of the current maladministration at Eskom. Eskom can be saved. There must just be political will to do so. The reason for the disaster at Eskom is because it is human-made, it is politically informed, and it is on the basis of an agreement with Western imperialism with the intention to eventually decommission and privatize Eskom. That can be turned around in a short period of time. As I've indicated to you, it must be important for us to create an energy secure base on the basis of our real energy resource in South Africa, which is high-grade coal, which we have and which we should not be exporting to Europe, but rather feed that high-grade coal into the furnaces of our coal power stations. As far as the other issues are concerned around corruption and maladministration, that can certainly change, but it must be on the basis of a full commitment to adherence to the rule of law, to adherence to service of the people and for the people of this country, and we must return to a culture of service rather than looting and lining your own pockets as this current administration is doing. I believe that a coalition of the left can achieve those objectives and save our country from the disaster that we are plunging into at this moment.
Carl Niehaus, Chairperson of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance, ARETA for short, talking to us about the national shutdown on Monday, the 20th of March. Thank you indeed. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Until the next time, go well. God bless.
Thank you so much. God bless. And thanks for always giving me the opportunity to reach out to our people.
A pleasure, our pleasure indeed. 8:37 exactly, news and views right here on Salam Media, standing by to talk to us. We'll be crossing over to Germany and we'll be hearing from Martin Lejeune. He's a journalist, and we're going to be looking at the issue around Benjamin Netanyahu's proposed visit to Germany and Britain.